very prestigious achievement that makes him the only Indian photographer so far to receive this recognition. He also held many solo exhibitions. Monday Morning Hues at Goet Jentram, Hyderabad is one of them. Recently, I got an opportunity to meet him in Visakhapatnam when he visited Vizag. And beside his profound expertise and achievements in photography, I found him to be extremely fine and sensitive gentleman. Thank you, Mr. Ashok Kandimalla, for accepting
Welcome,
our
sir.
request readily
Okay.
To give us a webinar. And I hand over the proceeding to Mr. Ashok Kandimalla.
Yes. So thank you, Mr. Agarwalji. I think the introduction was longer than my presentation. Or so I think there's so much of expectation has been set by you. So let me see what best I can do. So good evening, all participants. Thank you very much for sparing Sunday to join instead of spending time with your family. I do hope that you will find something useful towards the end by the time it's over. And my special thanks to many of my friends who are here who have come even knowing me very well. So that's a bit of a surprise to me. And I also see that there are many senior photographers here, including Mr. Vijay Agarwal, Satish, Sundar Rajan, and many others. I'm sorry if I left out somebody. And my very, very special greetings to my mentor, Ronnie, Mr. Rohinton Mehta, who made me what I am today. So thank you very much, Ronnie, for being here. So though your presence might make me a little nervous, but let me overcome that over time. Okay. So there are a couple of more issues I wanted to bring before we start off. First thing is the content what we are going to talk today may be very much uh, different or even opposite to what you've learned or realized so far. But I can tell you that this thing is not being talked from a theory point of view, but they were also experimented by me and found to be okay. Only those I am sharing with you. That's one thing. And remember that just because we've been following one method for a while, that doesn't mean it's correct. As you know, in many scientific theories, they were valid for hundreds of years, and some new theory comes and takes its place. So, like that, we may be accustomed or used to certain concepts, but they are not necessarily true. So, my idea was to bring in something which is really technically correct. Okay. So, while the theory may look complicated, I also summarized everything towards the end and also give you some practical tips which you can employ during your day-to-day shooting. The presentation is actually quite short. It's only about 27 slides or something like that. So we hope to spend more time in Q&A and so on and so on. Okay. So now I will start sharing my screen. And I think from what I was told is that the questions will be answered towards the end of the session. So if you would like to specifically ask me something, every slide has a small number at the bottom, slide number at the bottom left. So if you can note down, we can quickly go back to that particular number and it'll help us to sort of zero down on what you are looking for. Okay, so I'm just starting the presentation. So we go to share and we go to that. This is share. Shift. Okay, I hope everybody is able to see this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's start with this. This is the opening slide, which I think already you have an idea on what is what among this. So let's start. And there, I also sent a 5-6 line description on what we are going to talk. So it'll be more or less continuation of that or expansion of that. Okay. Okay. Not only this, there actually generally in photography, there are a lot of wrong concepts that go on. Okay. I just listed them, though we are not going to talk about all this today. One of the things is that whenever people see a building photographed with the leaning verticals, they call it as distortion. Unfortunately, 95% or maybe 99% call it as distortion. That is really not distortion, but that's just a perspective effect. Okay. And many people also think that wide angles cause it. No, actually, the perspective effect is completely independent of focal length. It has nothing to do with focal length. All lenses give the same perspective. Likewise, people think telephoto lenses have less depth of field than the wide angles. That's also not true. In fact, depth of field is completely independent of focal length once again. Okay. So this once again may be a little contradictory to what you have heard or listened so far. Okay. Now the other one is this cropped sensors. People think if you take a 100 mm lens and put it on a cropped sensor, it becomes 150 mm, and never it happens like that. It's the angle of view that changes. Once a lens is made and manufactured, its focal length can never change thereafter. Okay. Likewise, when you buy a camera, first thing somebody will come and ask you is, oh, you bought a camera, what's the resolution? Is it 24 MP or some 32 MP or whatever it is? Strictly speaking, that's not the resolution at all. That's just the pixel count. If you look at the camera manual, you will see that nowhere in the manual the manufacturer ever mentions that is a resolution. He only calls it as the number of pixels present. That's because nobody knows what is the resolution, including the manufacturer himself. Because camera alone does not define the resolution. Camera plus the lens, plus the target, plus the contrast, plus the lighting, so many factors come into there to finally decide what is this. So the manufacturer will not say it because he doesn't know. It's as simple as that. Okay. And the sixth point is very, very common in silent photography. Standard description is please submit images in 300 dpi. Actually, that is totally wrong because dpi is a meaningless specification. DPI is a printer specification and it is not in your hands at all. What is important is the pixels because several dots put together make one pixel. Okay. So perhaps what the organizers are looking for is 300 PPI, not DPI. 300 pixels per inch, not 300 dots per inch, because 300 dots per inch is a printer specification which the manufacturer sets when he manufactures the printer. You can never change it. It's not in your hands at all. It's as simple as that. I did bring up this topic in some discussions. Finally, they said the answer I got from it was that everybody says like that. So my answer was science and technology are not very democratic in nature. Just because many people do that doesn't make it correct. What is correct is a scientific fact, but not the majority. That's okay for governments, but not for science. Now let's come to the real main thing. Everybody says higher the noise, higher the ISO, higher the noise, higher the ISO, higher the noise. That's not true. ISO and noise are unconnected, actually. If you will see, you will be very surprised if I tell you that fact right now. But let me show you some examples and I'll show you why noise really does not depend on ISO. They are completely two independent factors. Okay. So I'm not sure if still 100 people are there or less are there by now, but let me continue with this. Okay.
House full, sir.
Okay. So to understand how exactly this noise business works, we need to go back a little bit, and that picture you can see is of Professor Albert Einstein. Incidentally, those who are interested in portrait photography would also maybe notice that it's taken by one very, very famous portrait photographer called Yusuf Karsh. Uh, so uh, he was the person who invented this effect called photoelectric effect, which means that when light falls on certain materials, it generates some electricity. Okay. So it's as simple as that. I think most of you must have heard of it during your high school days. But what he really contributed is that the light does not travel as a wave like what we think. It goes actually as small random packets. It comes one after another in a very random fashion. Now, why are we interested in this thing? you'll realize a little later that this random business is only creating havoc for us and not really the ISO value. Okay, we'll come to that a little later. But this randomness means not uniformly coming little after little, sometimes there's pause, sometimes like that, like that, like that. On the whole, it may look like you as if it's continuous, but in reality, it is not continuous. It is very random the way light travels. Okay. So even if it's a constant light source, what comes out of it is still random. Okay. So I was uh, asked to also put this small one extra slide to understand how the data flows inside your camera. So I think the first part is pretty simple. You have seen the what do you call there is some subject and there's a lens, and then the light from the reflected light from that particular subject goes through the lens and falls on the sensor. I will tell you what this green red business is a little later. And then and this is where the photoelectric effect comes. It generates a small amount of electricity, and then it goes to analog electronics, which is amplified, and then it gets converted into digital, and then a lot of processing takes place. If you're shooting a JPEG or something like that, a JPEG is generated. Even if it's a raw file, all the parameters you set in your camera, like contrast, saturation, all those are applied at that stage. And then it finally goes into a buffer and comes out, and you can take it out from your card and use it. Okay. So why I'm telling you at a very macro level is that we are going to come back to this in little more detail. But this is how the generally flows. The only interesting thing here is all sensors in the world are colorblind. They can't make out color at all. Okay. So to generate color, there is a small trick played by all manufacturers. They put a filters like this in front. This filter is a normal RGB type of a thing, but there's a little difference here. For every red and every blue, there are two green cells, green pixels available. That is, if you're having a 24 MP camera, 12 MP will be green, 6 MP will be red, and 6 MP will be blue. That's how it is organized. This particular method is called, was invented by a very famous scientist called Bryce Bayer, and it's known as a Bayer pattern. And from this filtering, the color information is obtained, and you will be able to see a color picture later on. Okay. So I think that's it. That's enough for us for today. To just understand how the thing is flowing, because we may come back to this in a moment, but generally this is how it happens in the end. Okay. So what is the ISO business? Okay. So ISO generally means International Standards Organization. Strictly speaking, I'm increasing ISO is a meaningless term because you don't increase International Standard Organization or decrease the International Standard Organization. It's quite meaningless actually. Okay. What you are actually doing is there is a standard put forth by ISO that's called ISO 12232. That is the international standard which defines the sensitivity of the sensors. Okay. So why is this required is to provide a sense of what you call as consistency across. That is why we say so is that suppose there are 3 cameras by 3 different manufacturers being shot in the same light and the same exposure, everything same. In that case, if the ISO is consistent at, let's say, 100, all 3 images should have the same brightness. Otherwise, you cannot compare one camera to the other camera. So that is why, for consistency's sake, so that there's a measure against you can compare one another, this international standard organization fixed the standard ISO 12232, which will define the sensitivity of the sensor properly in a systematic way. So all cameras follow this. So that is why, at least in theory, a photograph taken by Canon at ISO 100 or a Nikon or a Sony, all will have the same amount of brightness if the other things are also consistent. That's at least the theory part of it. Okay. Now, the native IIT ISO is never changed. It's a very common thing that saying that when I am increasing the ISO, the sensitivity of the sensor is changing. It never changes. Once you manufacture, it's fixed. That's it. It cannot change again. So what is really changing is when you increase the ISO is It is very similar to what you do when you are increasing the volume of your TV. That's all. What is that you are doing when you are just increasing the amplification of the signal, but you are not doing anything to the picture. You are simply increasing the volume, sound. That's all. Nothing more than that. So what you are doing is just that in the case. It's as if you are turning up the volume of your radio or a TV. That's all you are doing. You are not touching anything to the actual signal at all. It is just a making the signal of your sound from small to big. That's all it is. So your ISO also does the same thing. It does not do anything to the sensitivity of the sensor, which is totally and thoroughly fixed at the moment it has been manufactured. Okay. So these things, when you change the ISO, you are actually not changing the true sensitivity at all, but you can say that the effectively you are changing it, or maybe apparently you are changing it, but the ISO true sensor sensitivity is never changed. That's what is the last point says. These changes affect the effective ISO, but cannot change the true sensitivity of the sensor. Okay. So what you are doing is, just to give you a clarity, what you are doing is simply volume control increase. You are not touching the sensor at all. Okay. So here is where the more controversial topics start. I think everybody who teaches photography or learn photography will start with this wonderful exposure triangle. They do like this. And what I'm trying to tell is, if you look at the baseline here, this is a common thing that everybody learned or teaches. ISO less is less noise, ISO more is more noise. And that is in a widespread circulation today. But unfortunately, it is wrong. So why is it wrong? Let's see that. Let's look at this. Okay. So if you look at very carefully, two sides of this are of one nature, one side is of another nature. Okay. So what are the two sides which are similar? If you look at aperture or shutter speed, they're actually controlling the amount of light that is passing through the camera and hitting the sensor. They're controlling the light. Controlling the light. That's the important point. Just like in your film days, if some of your short film, what is exposure during those days? ISO was never considered as an exposure factor. You only say, my shutter speed should be this much, or my aperture should be so much. Those two are actually regulating the amount of light, or controlling the amount of light which is passing through and hitting the sensor. ISO is an electronic function. It has no control over light. This, as I was telling you, it is simply changing the volume control. That's all it does. Consequently, what it does is, it makes a picture look brighter or dimmer, but it has no effect on the actual exposure. Okay. So we'll take some examples on you, but nevertheless, it has one very bad effect. It has a severely detrimental effect on the dynamic range, which somebody I think was asking this question, what will happen when I increase ISO to the dynamic range? So I think 2-3 people have asked for it. I will show you what happens to the dynamic range when you increase ISO. But all I'm saying is, this exposure triangle is a wrong thing, or at least not explained properly. Out of the three sides, two sides behave in one way, controlling the light. Third is just an electronic function which does nothing to control the light, but only increases the gain of the amplifiers inside it. Okay. In fact, this very famous author Thomas Hogan was written a number of books. He says, as many of us have tried to explain for many years, there is no exposure triangle at all, he says. Okay. That's once again very different from what you learned, but please bear with me till the end. Okay. Now, what is the correct thing? So here you are. So what happens to ISO? If the ISO is there, it increases the brightness, and also at the same time, it lessens the dynamic range of your photograph. If you lower it, it becomes dimmer. At the same time, you get more dynamic range. So we are going to play with this thing and see how it's going to be beneficial for us to do different things to get best out of your camera. Okay. So let's look at ISO and noise. This is the whole idea of the whole thing. So it is very hard to believe that these two are not related with one another. So in other words, increasing ISO will not increase noise. Okay. I think after 1 and 2 are said, many people may leave and they may, but or others will be asking my third question. To save you the trouble, I put it myself. Is that really so? They will tell me, I can show you 100 pictures at high ISO which have a high noise. Now, what is your explanation to that? Why is it my high ISO pictures are showing high noise? If you really say increasing ISO will not increase noise, I can show you 2 dozen examples where high ISO is corresponding to the high noise. Okay, that's the apparent thing, but underneath there is something else going on. It is not the high ISO which is causing the higher noise, but the low light that is reaching the sensor which is causing the problem. You generally use high ISO during low light. That low light is the one which is causing the problem, but not the high ISO. Even in very bright light, you can generate a lot of noise by reducing the light drastically. I will show you some example of that also when you see. When we mean low light reaching the sensor, I am very careful with this. I am not saying low ambient light. I am saying low light reaching the sensor. So low light may reach the sensor because of lower ambient light or due to deliberate underexposure. In fact, some person put this question at 100 ISO also. I am saying very high noise. Absolutely correct. It will happen. If you underexpose, then you are going to get noise because of low light, not because of ISO. I'll show you some examples, okay? But on the other hand, there is a definite correlation between higher ISO values, which will definitely decrease your dynamic range of the thing. Somebody asked me, what is dynamic range? So we'll proceed a little further and we'll see you. I'll also show you why it happens like that. Okay. Now, this is why actually low light is causing noise. I'm not sure how much of you will really like this slide, but I will briefly go through it. If those who are very scientifically minded and they want to know why low light is causing a problem, this will explain to it, because I already told you that light is very random in nature. The light particles are random in nature. With the result, if the light is very low, what happens is, if these 4 squares are 4 different pixels or sensor heads, one will get 3 packets, one will get 5 packets, one will get 2 packets, one will get 3 packets. So if you look at 3 as a base, not all are getting the same amount. Some are getting less, some are getting more. Now, what happens is, when you take a picture, that is why you are finding some pixels bright, some pixels darker. That's what is causing the problem, and that manifests itself as your noise. And this is a noise that is coming due to the very nature of light. There is nothing you can do about it, and it's called short noise. That is the name of it. It is coming due to the random nature of the light itself. There is nothing we can do about it. The randomness of the low light is causing. This is very similar to how it looks when it starts to rain. If there's a very light drizzle and you're standing in front of a large area, not all area will get similar number of drops. After a while, what happens is everything gets evened out. Same thing here. If the rain is heavy or the light is very strong, there will be a variation between pixel to pixel, but the percentage of the variation will be very less. Therefore, the short noise will be very less. Okay. I am not sure if I understood properly, but I just want to tell you, at low light, the randomness causes what is called as a short noise, and that is not in your hand. That's it, period. You can reduce it by some other techniques, but you cannot control it directly by yourself. We'll see also how we can reduce it by using some techniques. Okay. Now let's go back to this same picture once again. So if that is at the macro level, this is at the micro level. Once again, to show you how it is, the light falls, a small electric current comes out, and it goes through an amplifier. And I told you, ISO control is nothing more than that. It's a volume control. It increases the volume of the thing or the signal. Then it goes through several stages, comes out. That we have already seen. We need not go through all that. But what I'm trying to do is that at each stage, another type of noise is added to it. That's the electronic noise, or called as a read noise. But luckily, the technology has advanced so much that it is no longer a problem. Leading to what is called as a very important step called ISO invariance. This was also asked by somebody, which is a better way to do it? should I increase the ISO or should I take a picture which is underexposed at a lower ISO and subsequently increase it in post-processing and brighten it? Which is better? Okay. So that's a very important and a very interesting question. I will show some examples and it will be clear to you. But that property where you can underexpose and increase the brightness in post-processing to get the same result as increased ISO, both being the same, is called ISO invariance. Okay. So to explain once again, if your camera is ISO invariant, like what most cameras are there today, you can underexpose and boost up the shadow in post-processing, and that is no different from increasing the ISO in your camera itself. In fact, it is better you do it in post-processing, which I will show you why. Okay. If these two slots are too much, just leave it for the time being. But hereafter we get to the real nitty-gritty, and this is where our real important thing starts. Okay. So we've been again and again dealing into your heads that ISO does not increase noise. ISO does not increase the noise. So what is really happening? So I think some of you must have heard of this thing. This is called a Macbeth color checker. It has small color patches. So I took 3 shots and converted them black and white to make it uniform. Okay. So one shot has been taken at ISO 3200. That's my reference shot. Okay. Now I have taken one shot at ISO 800, which is 2 stops down. So naturally that's on your left and it's darker. And I also pushed 2 stops up to 12,800 and that is brighter than the other two. Okay. So you can make out there are 3 pictures here taken at 3 different ISOs. Okay. One at 800, one at 3200 and one at 12,800. But the important thing is shutter speed and aperture have been kept same. This is very, very important. Shutter speed and aperture have been kept same. That means the amount of light which is actually hitting the sensor has been maintained the same. Only thing is I'm playing around with ISO. Okay. So what are the results? Obviously, one is dark, one is okay, and one is brighter. If I equalize all the brightnesses in post-processing, then I will get something like this. Okay. But now if you look at it, the noise is same in all 3. They look, in fact, I can't tell which is which. ISO 12,800, ISO 800, ISO 3200 all look same because the shutter speed and the aperture have been maintained constant. I just equalize it in the post process of the brightness. This clearly shows that ISO is only playing with the brightness, but not with the actual exposure, which is controlled by shutter speed and aperture, which are in turn controlling the actual light which is hitting the sensor. That is the one which controls. If that is made under, then you are likely to get noise, but not due to ISO at all. So that's what I wanted to tell you here. Okay, so this clearly shows that so long as you maintain shutter speed and aperture, you can play around as you wish in post-processing and all will get the same amount of noise regardless of your thing. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Okay, now let me complicate your life a little more and bring in another small variable. Okay, and I also request you to do this test yourself to convince yourself that I am not telling some story, but it is a real practical thing. But let me show you this one. Now, this may look very contradictory to what I told, but I'll explain once again. Left side shot has been taken at 1/25th second, ISO 100 and f5.6. The right side shot has been taken at 51,200 ISO. Heavy noise. So what the hell is this? I've been telling you something, ISO does not increase noise, ISO does not increase noise, and suddenly I show you one picture, very heavy noise. Okay. So at higher ISO, so what's happening? No, there is something very sneaky going on behind somewhere. So what is sneaky? Look at the shutter speed. Shutter speed is 1/125 in one case, 1/25 in one case. Other case is 1/12,800. So what did I do? I reduced the light by 8 stops. Okay. I reduced the light by 8 stops. Ambient light has not changed. I just reduced the amount of light passing through my lens and hitting the sensor by 8 stops. And this corresponds to EV 1.5. You know what is EV 1.5? It is like moonlight. So at moonlight, obviously, you'll get noise. That's the fellow who is getting the noise. So don't, the ambient light is totally irrelevant. Don't go by ambient light. What is important is what is the light which is actually hitting the sensor. That is why if you underexpose, you are going to see noise at ISO 100, ISO 50, ISO 10 also you'll find noise if you can do it. That's the problem issue. So this being the basis, how do we maximize our picture quality is the next step. Okay. Before that, I also want, this was another topic which has been asked by many other people, many people among the thing. What is brightness range? They were asking what is dynamic range, what is brightness range. I'll try to explain that in simple terms. So brightness range is very simple, is what you see with your eyes when you look at a scene. That's your brightness range. Okay. Now, once again, it's a very important point here. It is not absolute brightness. Absolute brightness means you could go to Vishakhapatnam, Agarwalji will take you, go at mid-noon into beach, it will be very, very bright. The sand will be very bright. The sky will be very bright. Everything will be bright, bright. No, that's not a problem. That does not mean your brightness range is very high. That's not range. Brightness is high. Brightness range is very high means typically if you go to indoor scene with windows and dark corners, window light where windows are there, it's very bright. Where dark corners are there, very dark. The difference between the dark and the bright point is the issue. That's a range, not absolute brightness. Likewise, if you're walking on a street in the night, that's a very, very high brightness range because you'll find very dark spots everywhere and suddenly there'll be a pool of light from a street light. So once again, if you compare, the maximum brightness difference is very, very high. That's not the absolute brightness, but the difference between the two. That's what is a troublemaker. It is also sometimes you call it as a very large brightness range means it's a very high contrasty scene. That means there's a huge difference between the darks, the shadows, and the highlights, which are the brights. When the difference between the two is very large, then you say the brightness range is very high. Once again, an emphasis, it is not the absolute brightness. A beach scene is not having a very high brightness range. It is just very bright. That's all. Okay. Next, what is dynamic range? Dynamic range is what your sensor can actually record. Okay. That is what is called as the, how much can you record? Generally speaking, if you don't resort to any magic or any post-processing or HDR or some filtering, etc., it is about 10 stops, which is quite huge actually. Okay. If you go to very sophisticated cameras, which like cine movie cameras like Arri, etc., they give you 15 stops dynamic range or even 17 stops dynamic range, but they also cost as much as a Mercedes car. Okay. So they are, you're talking about 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs for a camera. So you get what you pay for in the end. That's a universal truth. Nobody can change it. Okay. So that is what we call as a dynamic range, what you can actually record. Okay. So generally the larger the sensor, the higher the dynamic range, but there are ways to get around it also. Because somebody was asking, what is dynamic range? This is what it is. Some people also call by the name latitude, but the right name, in my opinion, is dynamic range and brightness range. I already explained. Latitude, in my opinion, is the tolerance to bad exposure. If you take a digital sensor, it has a very large latitude towards underexposure. You can underexpose a lot and still pull up the shadow, whereas it has very little latitude towards the brightness. If it exceeds brightness value, you get what happens here. You get blown out, and that will not be much use after that. You cannot recover it. Okay. So this is brightness range. This is dynamic range. So let's get a little more deeper into this and see. So I just put a small diagram over here. Let's say brightness range is red. Dynamic range, what your camera can record is green, blue. So long as what your camera can record is more than the brightness of the scene, no problem at all. It will record everything. Okay. When the brightness range exceeds that of the what your camera can record, you have a problem. Okay. The only way you can get around this problem is, some of you must be already using it also. If your sky is very bright, you can put a graduated filter from top and cut the high brightness of the sky. Or in the digital age, you take 3 or 4 or 5 exposures, some under, some over, and you merge all of them together in what is called as a high dynamic range imaging to get all the tones inside it. Otherwise, there is no way. You cannot take such a big item and put it in such a small box. Not possible. Simple as that. Okay. You got to do some jugaad like this to get around it. Okay. So now let's come back to our practical problems. So this is a practical problem. So let us see what is happening here. Okay. So this is a picture I took at a low ISO. Okay. So the light is very low, but I used a low ISO. So what did I get? I got a underexposed picture. The same scene with a tripod, so that it doesn't move. That's the reason here. I went to a high ISO and look at here what has happened. These highlights are blown out. Okay. On the contrary, let us take, I took the same picture and boosted the shadows. Now look at here what has happened to this ledge here. You can see it very clearly. So why I am putting like this, showing you this is, if you are going to ISO, you are drastically reducing the dynamic range. You are much better off by going to a low ISO, underexposing the image, and pushing it up in the post-processing. Noise is going to be same in both cases, but the advantage you get in low ISO is you have got better dynamic range compared to here. You see this whole thing, this ledge is very clear, but here it is washed out. So my recommendation is, if you are getting into a situation where you have to use ISO, just see whether you can do it with a low ISO, underexpose it, come back and boost it in post-processing. The noise will be the same for all modern cameras. The advantage you get is you will get better dynamic range. Okay. This was also asked by somebody. So this is the answer to it. Okay. So look at this. There's another very common technology or technique which is often told by instructors, what is called ETTR, are exposed to the right, and they tell you to do it to maximize dynamic range. That's absolutely correct. But you should push the histogram to the right, not by increasing the ISO, only by a slower shutter speed or a wider aperture. You should move the histogram to the right. I'm not very sure if all of you are familiar with this ETTR. It's a very commonly used technique to increase the dynamic range, but you should do it with caution and also not move it to the right by increasing the ISO. Try to keep the ISO as low as possible and move it to the right by either opening up the aperture or slowing down the shutter speed. Okay. So the better thing would be to underexpose and brighten in post-processing rather than increase the ISO. That's the takeaway from it. So I'm going to show you some graphs also. This is just for your thing. If you ask me, you are telling as ISO is increasing, dynamic range is decreasing. This is a graph it shows you. Now look at this graph of a well-known camera. At about 100 here, the dynamic range is about 10 stops. But by the time ISO has increased to 51,000, your dynamic range is as low as 2 stops. Look at this, how much you lost. Okay. So steadily as ISO increases, the dynamic range is coming less and less and less. In fact, this is what is happening here. This is the reason why at high ISO, I lost this information, whereas at a low ISO, I could go and retrieve this thing, whereas that was not possible in the case of high ISO. Okay. Now, one more small problem. If you are interested in this, I want to show you this also. Nowadays, some modern cameras are having something called dual gain design. I'm not sure whether I should get into this, but sometimes what happens is at some particular ISO, actually you get a little more dynamic range. Okay. This small kink-like thing appears. So I will not go into details, but you can go into your some sites, do this. You can find out where the this dual gain is occurring, and instead of using something like 400, 640, etc., directly you can jump to 800 and you may get it. But whatever is the thing, the steady drop in dynamic range as ISO increases is a given. That's a must. That will happen always. Okay. So why is this happening at all? Always. Why is dynamic range decreasing? So let's look at this. Think that each photocell is a small bucket. So the cells which had received low light shadow areas, the level is here. And those which have received low high light or more light, it is. The difference between high and low is your dynamic range. Now, if you pump up ISO, it's as if you are pouring more liquid into the bucket. So this is good. It rose from here to here. But what happened to here? What is higher? It cannot become higher beyond a certain point. It is overflown. So what happens when water overflow over a bucket? It's lost. Same thing is happening here. That is the reason why you have lost these highlight details and they will never come back. This is an overflow occurring here because you pumped up the ISO. So you are better off by doing it in post-processing. Another advantage of this processing is if you are increasing ISO, you are pouring water in all the cells, not just the cells which have less liquid. Whereas if you are doing post-processing, you can selectively choose shadows and only boost them without boosting the highlights. That is possible in post-processing because you can mask the low light areas and only there you can increase it, but need not touch the highlight areas because if you do that, the same problem will occur in post-processing also. But there you have tools where you can only push up the shadow rather than the highlight. Okay. So that's the theory. Let's get into a little practical. This is almost at the end. So I've summarized all what I've told you here. So the concept of exposure triangle is not correct and can lead to issues. Lowest noise comes from maximum light capture. The more the light you allow, less will be the shot noise. Hence, the lowest shutter speed, widest aperture as possible. After you determine that, you use the lowest ISO possible. Okay. And low ISO may also support maximum dynamic range, but check once for that kink that might be there on your camera. If there may be little higher ISO may help you there. Okay. With all modern ISO invariant cameras, increasing ISO is same as brightening in the post-processing. I showed you an example. Okay. Hence, underexpose and push in post-processing. The advantage is higher dynamic range, highlights are protected and better control over each tone. Camera cannot control each tone. In post-processing, you can do that. You can touch midtones, you can touch highlights, you can do shadows, you can do blacks, you can do whites. That flexibility you get in post-processing, but not within camera. Forget ETTR by bumping ISO. If you want to do, it's bad, it decreases DR. So if you want to really use ETR, please do it only by lengthening the slower shutter speed or wider aperture. There are only two ways to do it. The amount of ambient light is irrelevant. I told you, it is the actual light that is receiving this, hitting the sensor. So even if you take a situation where the light is very low, if you give a very long shutter speed and a very wide aperture, noise will automatically reduce because you are allowing a lot more light into it. Okay. That's a very important topic. If you're using a very long exposure, even in dim scenes, you will get much better noise or much lower noise, I mean, without even pushing up the ISO. That's what most of these astrophotographers do. They don't go to crazy ISOs. They just keep the shutter open for hours and hours together like that to get it. And maybe some of you are already doing that. So bonus tip, Okay, I'm going to give you one small tip which is very handy. So you really have very low light. Okay, can you really do some good pictures with less noise? But how do you do it without pushing ISO? So I want to show you that. Okay, very small procedure. I'll just show you how to do that. So how to do handheld photography in low light with less noise. I told you, you increase the time of exposure, you get better noise. But increasing the exposure automatically means you got to have a tripod. I am talking about handheld over here. Okay. Now let's look at this. This is a very simple shot taken in the same room I am talking about. So here, the correct exposure for this picture is actually 1 second. 1 second. Okay. Okay. But I could handhold only 1/30 per second. Okay. Maybe some of you can do better, some of you do worse. But what happened is the best I can handhold is 1/30. I don't increase the ISO. I take the same picture at 1/30. So what is the result? This picture compared to this picture is 5 stops under compared to that. Right? So now simply push up the ISO, and this is same as increasing the ISO in camera. Here I brightened it through post-processing, and look at the noise over here. Very bad. But now worse than increasing the ISO in camera. But I can reduce that also. How do I reduce that also? Okay. This is how I do it. What I do is I don't take one picture, but I take 5 pictures. So the light gathered is 5 times one picture. You got the point? Okay. So I am not taking 1 second picture, but I'm taking 5 1/30 pictures. Okay. And now I average them out. I'll tell you how to averaging them out. Once I average it, you look at these 3 pictures. This is the picture at 1/1 second, pakka tripod shot. This is a handheld shot at 1/30, brightened up in post-processing. Look at the noise over here. And this is a shot, again 1/30, but 5 images averaged out. It looks pretty clean compared to this one. You got it? Okay. So what is the magic happening here? Really, there is no magic. It is once again our random business coming into picture. So what we are doing is, when we are taking 5 pictures or even more, what happens is, due to randomness, the noise does not appear at the same spot on all the pictures. Whereas anything static in this room, for example, this thing, all this monitor, this computer, this keyboard, everything is static. It doesn't move from frame to frame. Whereas the noise is moving frame to frame. You don't see it, that's all. In one frame, it's at one place, at another frame, it's another place, in another frame, it's another place. So when you take all of them and if you make a statistical average of it, by and large, its effect is reduced. So that's why you get a much cleaner image. So what is really helping us here is the random nature of the noise or the random propagation of this thing. So you can thank Professor Einstein for it. Okay. So by taking several pictures and averaging them out, you get a very, very clean and a good result, much better than what you would get otherwise. But the issue here is, I'll be very straight away here, it's a limitation. It works only with static subject.
May I little interfere here, sir?
Yes.
When we are taking handheld 5 pictures, definitely means the lines will not be same. They'll be
Yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir,
like
yes, sir.
movement.
That we will
So-
ask our Adobe to sort it out for us. Okay.
Yeah.
So
How do we do that?
I'll do that. I'll tell you that. Of course, sir. Definitely. They are going. I think the right word to use it is registration between frames will
Yes.
move from
Yes.
one to the other. Okay. So don't worry about it. So how we do it is, since I'm going to give this presentation, I'm not going to go through the all the steps in this thing. This can only be done through post-processing, the averaging, and it can only be done through Photoshop. Even if you're using Lightroom, you still have to use Photoshop. Okay. So what is done here is, the first step is what Mr. Agarwal is mentioning, very listening. Edit, go select all the layers and say all the and say edit auto align layers. Okay. So this will, even if one is like this, one is like this, you'll put everything together. Pakka it will register. Why it is able to register? Because there are a lot of static things in the picture which have not moved. So it knows those things and then it will be aligned. It will do 100% fantastic job. Nothing to worry about it. After that, you select all the layers together, and these are the steps you convert into smart objects. Okay, these are the steps, 3 steps only. And then smart end you say mean. You know, I think some of you must have got little bit of mathematics knowledge, or maybe you're mathematicians itself. When you say mean, it means you are taking average of the things. So wherever there is static, the average will be brightened up, added up together, and whenever it is moving, the average will reduce. So that is why you get a very clean image like this when you average it. That's all about it. That's
Wonderful.
all.
Wonderful.
Okay. This is a wonderful technique. I've used it so many times. I get good results all the time. Okay. But remember this limitation. It works only with static circuits. So what is that we have done here? We have done some smart jugglery here, Jugad. We exploited the same random nature of light to overcome this by stacking up several images, averaging it out, and thereby reducing the noise. Okay. So if you look at the final result, I would still say this is better, no doubt. 1 second is better with a tripod, but this is not so bad either. We have come very close to that, and you're able to eliminate all this blotchy noise compared to this. So that's about it, sir. You can do it in Lightroom plus Photoshop, or for Photoshop is must. You have to do it. Okay. So you can put all the images, 5 images, 10 images, 20 images inside the Photoshop, but all images will appear in one file only as different layers. There 10 files will be brought into one layer only, one file only as 10 layers or whatever pictures you took, and then you average it out. Okay. So you have to have a good computer basically. Be careful with it. You don't take some 40 megapixel camera, produce 20 images and give it to an old computer. It will throw its hands and sit. Okay. So be careful there. If you want to experiment, do it with 4 frames, 4, 5 frames, 6 frames like that. And then you can see how your system is actually performing. Okay. So that's about it. I wanted to share with you. Many of these things which we discussed about the noise were published in the Smart Photography 2025 May issue. Those who have access to it can read the complete description of it also. All these pictures and all were described in detail, how they occur and how they were doing, how they were neutralized, averaged out, and all those things you can see out. Okay. So that brings to the end of my presentation. I don't know how many are there. 50 are there?
All 95 are there, sir.
Oh, this must be a record for me.
Don't underestimate means here.
About 20 people watching on YouTube.
Okay,
yeah,
sir.
because
Okay.
this was one time it was means 100 for a long time.
Okay.
Then some people had a different webinar or program, so maybe 4 or 5 people left, but
Okay.
many people joined also.
I'm not sure if Ronnie is there. I don't know
This
how
is
to.
Vikram, Ashok.
Yes,
thank you
I'm
very
Hello,
much.
Vikram sir. Bagunara.
Bagunan, thank you. Very
Chapati, sir.
enlightening.
So
talk.
there are some questions now. We can unmute all, and people
Is
can.
Ronnie there by any chance?
Yes, Ashok, I'm here.
Ronnie, would you like to add anything?
No, I think you explained very well.
Okay. Okay.
I can't do anything better.
Oh, thank you. Okay. So
Sir, we can-
I'm open to questions. Please tell me what you.
Sir, I want to ask you one question.
Some peep is saying somewhere. If you can.
Sir,
Yeah.
I want to ask you one question.
Yes.
There's
Some feedback is coming here.
we have to mute all once.
No, what I suggest is everybody can mute. When who wants to put it on, they can put it on and do it.
Yeah, I will request everybody to mute themselves. Somebody who is trying to ask a question can unmute himself and
Yeah,
ask.
exactly. That's how we do it. Yes, exactly.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I'm not sure who wants to ask first.
Yeah, and but Dr. Sridhar, you were typing many questions in the chat box. Can you ask them now?
Would you? I think I'll have to refer to them because there were so many doubts I had. I think
Yeah.
I'll just read out. I'll just read out.
I will enter into chat box. One question was there should be a lower limit of underexposure to be able to bring out shadow detail post processing. The dynamic range of latitude of our.
You can pull up to 5 stops, sir, in modern cameras.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. You can pull up, and if you still find some noise, etc., you can very easily. I don't know which software you use. I'm not sure. If you're using Lightroom or something like that, or Photoshop, just one click and say reduce noise. It will reduce. It is doing a fantastic job. But the only problem with that is you need to once again a good computer. In fact, my earlier computer used to take some 11, 12 minutes to each job. But now the newer computer is able to do it in 10 seconds. Okay, so you got to have a very good graphics processor. Then the execution of noise will be very, very fast. Reduction noise. He'll do a very good job.
No, I use Luminar Neo, but that's doing fairly well.
Okay,
Luminar-
Luminar, there are many packages are available.
Yeah.
You can choose what you wish. Yeah.
So I think rule of the thumb, 5 stops under exposure is
Yeah. In fact, the picture I showed you is 5 stops. This one.
Sagravat, can
This
you
is 5 stops. 1
Yeah.
second to 1/30 is 5 stops, approximately.
can you just scroll down because I forgot what I've asked.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Okay.
Your another question was for handheld photographs. Is there a sweet spot in ISO balancing sharpness and shake, or go with the lowest speed to manage without shake?
Sir, ISO has no effect on sharpness. What happens is when you're pushing the ISOs very, very high, in very low light conditions, what happens is when you increase the ISO, what the manufacturer himself does is he puts some noise reduction whether you like it or not. Including raw files will have some noise reduction. So that is one of the reasons you will find slight softness in very high ISOs, because the manufacturer, even in raw file, puts a little bit of softening. Plus the edges, etc., under low light may have mottling, etc. So you may feel that it is really reducing sharpness, but really speaking, it is. And another reason is when you increase ISO, the contrast also reduces in the images. Contrast also causes loss of apparent sharpness. Okay. So that's the reason why you feel so. But really speaking, ISO has no effect on sharpness.
No, but then there's a shake due to camera shake. You must use a larger aperture, I suppose.
You have to use larger aperture, and instead of increasing ISO, you underexpose is what I'm saying. Okay. So let us say your correct exposure is 1 second. Look at the same example again. But you can't handhold at 1 second. So, but you can handhold at 1/30. Just giving you an example. So shoot with the same ISO, but you'll get a grossly underexposed picture. You can push it later in the post-processing because the eyes won't change much in that case. And if possible, you can take multiple shots and average it also. Conditions permitting, of course. That is, of course, always there.
Sir, one doubt. Rather than taking 5 snaps, suppose we duplicate it to 5 pictures.
No, you won't get it, sir. That's the beauty of it. Because the noise will be at the same place in all the 5.
Okay. Yeah.
You have to take 5. Okay.
Wait. I understand.
So, Professor Einstein, you can't bypass him.
One Mr. Parna Ghatak, he asked, what can be done in case of a fast moving object or event shot during night? In low light when we are shooting
I would go home without shooting. So, but I really can't answer that question. What does a fast moving object mean? What does it end?
During night, some event, let us say a dance program or
A
something.
dance program, enough light will be there, generally speaking. Shouldn't be a problem there.
Contrast will be there.
Yeah. You just use, you just say, you see, there the condition is you got to have certain minimum shutter speed. You can't help it. So you start at that shutter speed and maybe you can, and then the aperture, and then maybe you can underexpose by going to lower ISOs, and then you boost it in the post-processing.
No, he must be asking that alignment cannot happen if it is a moving object.
Yes,
by
no, you
taking
take
more
only
number.
one picture, I'm telling you. I am not telling
Right.
you take multiple pictures.
Okay.
That I've explained it very clearly in this slide that this system is only useful for static subjects. Suppose you're shooting an interior of somewhere or a museum or someplace like that, you can use it. Or a low light, you've gone to a monument, it's very low light, you can shoot it that way. Or still life or something you can do like that. But if it's moving, then the only way is you choose a shutter speed first, what it is necessary to stop it, that you can't help it. And then set the aperture accordingly and use the lowest possible ISO up to maybe 3-4 stops under. Then later on you can push it up in the post pass.
Somebody has asked if you can give a presentation, like you said, the depth of field and lenses. The focal length of the lens doesn't
Yeah,
change. with the-
even the perspective also does not change with. I think the perspective I think I had already given in YPS once.
YPS platform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think even the depth of field also I given. I think both I have given in YPS.
Both in the same.
No. It is each is
same
45
present-
minutes it takes. I think I've given it 2 different times in YPS.
We have lot of time. Can you? No, but that presentation will take time, no?
It will take at least 1 hour. It will take. Yeah, it will
Oh,
take 1 hour.
then we, if you kindly accept, we can have another program.
If you're
Yes,
still
we
not
can-
done with me, that is your problem. But we can do
No, no. You can see all 95 still sticking to you.
it.
Sir, one question.
Sure, we
is,
can do it. We can do it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Actually, if you are
I-
interested in that, it's better to do the perspective part first, because that
Huh.
will give you a much better idea on what. That's a more common error than the depth of field thing.
हाँ, yeah, perspect.
Yeah.
जैन साहब कुछ पूछ रहे थे आप?
हाँ सर, मैं ये पूछ रहा था अशोक सर से कि he said that 5 different photographs have to be taken at the same speed and then afterwards stacked together in Photoshop.
Yes.
And before stacking, you said it is to be converted into smart object. So each
No,
photograph has
no,
to
sir,
be
no, sir,
converted.
no, sir. First, you got to align them first.
Okay.
First step is alignment.
And after aligning, then only it is to be converted into
Smart
smart object.
objects. Select all of them and make into smart object. Then you take the smart object stack mode mean.
Okay. That is some doubt was there in my mind. That is why I was asking you.
Actually,
And,
maybe you can take
will-
a screenshot of this. I don't know whether if you want to take, you can take a screenshot.
It will be available in the recording that time I can.
Yeah,
also
maybe.
take it.
हाँ, but we will upload in YouTube.
Yeah.
It will be there.
And secondly, as BS sir has said, it is a very good suggestion. I have seen your presentation in that YPS about that lens
Perspective.
That's
first perspective, and that needs to be repeated again here in the larger audience so that more people can understand about that. What are the
behavior of lens and yes.
that is very
I
important.
have not done anything about lenses. Maybe you're talking about perspective only. How
Perplexity. Perplexity.
Yes.
perplex.
Very important
This YPS is my friend. He coined that name, perplexing perspective.
Mr. Satish, huh?
No, not Satish. That is Hardik.
Okay.
Hardik Shah.
Hardik, that he is a very good friend. So he put 2 pieces mirror image and made it into something, and he made a nice logo of it at that time. So
I think there is
that-
Mr. Joshi has raised his hand. So can we
Yes, sir.
invite him for a question?
Yeah. I want to ask you about, can I ask you?
yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Joshi.
I want to ask you what is the difference between the exposure compensation and the last part you have shown to fix the in the Photoshop stationary objects.
Exposure compensation is nothing to do with this, because exposure compensation means you're just changing the exposure. If the exposure what the camera has computed and given you is not the one you want, you change, you apply exposure compensation to make it more or less, unless I'm missing something here.
And I think what it means is to underexpose it to make it 1/30th.
Ah.
Suppose he makes it 5 stops under exposure,
Right.
in exposure compensation. It is the same thing.
It's
reducing
the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same
Same
thing.
thing.
It's the same thing.
Okay. Thank you.
But you see, that what happens is when you are underexposing using exposure compensation, it also depends on what exposure mode you are in. If you are in aperture priority, it behaves in one way. Shutter priority, it behaves in another way. You just have to take care of that. That's all. Yeah, but you'll get the same effect under exposure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take. Okay.
If you, let us say you're in aperture priority mode, which I commonly use, if you're 5.6 and 1 second, if you keep on exposing five stops under, it will become 1/30 by itself. You need not worry about it.
One Ramya Rao has raised a hand. Miss Ramya Rao, you can unmute and ask your question.
Sir, thank you, sir. Sir, my question was, I was experimenting on my at home. Okay, what I faced is on the same light condition, say ISO 800. When I was shooting my subject, I was getting no noise at all. Okay, but now under same light condition, when I'm shooting the same subject, I'm getting some digital noise. Is this because of my sensor? Problem with my sensor?
I have.
Question is a little not clear. Can you repeat it, Mr. Ramya Rao?
Yeah, but thing is that say suppose I'm shooting a still life on under same light condition at ISO 800. Okay, I wasn't getting any noise. Aperture, everything is same. Now under same light condition, when I'm shooting at ISO 800, I'm getting noise. So is this because of my sensor problem that light is receiving less on my camera sensor?
How old is the camera?
It's over 2 years, 3 years have been gone. 3 years have passed, 4 years passed. No service has been made till now. So
No. How many frames you might have shot in these 4 years?
lots of shots. I have to count. I guess it's over 60,000 maybe, 60, 70,000 maybe. I have to count, sir. I haven't.
No,
I
it
don't
should
know.
not be a problem, I think.
No, I see. Really speaking, that doesn't come under the ambit of this. But in my opinion, you can do. You have to very carefully note down all the parameters. But you were saying it was clean and now it is not clean. When was that? When it was clean? How many days back?
Mr. Ramya Rao, how long back that experiment you had done?
So pardon?
How many days back you faced this problem?
It was like previous months, say perhaps like
Maybe a
previous
month or
month.
two back.
See, I see. In
Yeah.
2 months, the sensor cannot start giving you more noise. That is, I don't think. To the best of my knowledge, I think it's
say
impossible.
something here? May I say
Run it. Yeah, run it, please.
just want to know whether when he said he took identical conditions, just but the light was identical, but did you shoot in incandescent light?
Yes, same. Every parameter is
Both
same.
times
Yes,
it was incandescent light.
Yes.
See, one time you have taken in daylight, one time you have taken in incandescent light.
I
That
use
will be different.
artificial light. Okay, so the light conditions are same. But at when I was I shot the same subject previously when I bought it new. It was not showing any noise, but now it starts showing noise. So that's why I'm after hearing a lecture. So that's why I'm asking: is this because perhaps because my light is coming a bit low in my sensor, which is creating low noise?
So now maybe now you've got and now you understand what noise is and you're seeing noise what you did not see earlier, though it was the same. That is the possibility.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Dr. PVN Rao.
Sir, good evening, sir. Thank
Good evening,
you
Andy.
for
Good evening.
arranging the wonderful workshop and
Thank
highly appreciated. And I want to know some information about dedicated monochrome sensor, sir.
The
Because-
dedicated monochrome sensor is nothing. They remove that bare pattern filtering on top
Yes, sir.
and charge more money for that, removing it.
No, sir, they are claiming they by removing the Bayer filter, they have more dynamic range and high ISO.
Well,
for
naturally, you'll get that because you are allowing more light inside, right? The filter will automatically cut some light down.
Okay.
So since you're removing, you will get some extra dynamic range there because more light is being allowed inside.
Okay.
Okay, and also the other problem is the image also will be sharper because there is something called that Bayer pattern when you do it.
Okay.
I didn't show this slide, but this one when you try to do this interpolation of color and all,
Yes,
certain
sir.
amount of approximation is done.
Okay.
All that is not there, so it will be sharper definitely.
Okay.
But I am not in very much in favor of why these people want to remove it and charge more from us. But anyway, that's how.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir, for
Yeah.
Sir,
your.
I have one question.
Yeah, please.
I just wanted to know what happens when we use programs like denoise, either in Lightroom or like Topaz denoise program.
Yeah.
What exactly happens to reduce noise?
If I knew what was happening, I could have written the software myself, but I think it is very complicated. I really don't know what they do, sir. I really don't know. Very honest. What they do, I don't know. I mean, it is very complicated. It is what they do. That much I can say. But somebody told me
but
some
but
somebody told me
the
about some underlying mathematics what happens, but that is a little too complicated for me. I
Okay.
couldn't understand properly.
but the output is great, sir. In
Oh, the output is
Yes,
fantastic.
yes, output is very good.
May I say something?
Yeah.
They actually calculate the nearby pixels and using the internet. Say, suppose you've taken a picture of a snake. Okay. So they by first they mathematically calculate the picture of the snake which was supposed to be clearer. Then with the base of the they have thousands of databases of snakes. Okay, that's not something new. So what they do is they know what is to be done and they actually add pixels to it. They actually regenerate the image from the databases.
I think what you're telling is the content they were filling and all. It is correct, but I don't know
Yeah,
about noise.
actually that's actually no denoise is they are actually say like my copy message my plate is broken. I go to my raw camera filter and they get something like brand new. How they're doing it? They're doing it mathematically and downloading the pictures of the plate. They know what exactly the plate should be look like, and they are just regenerating the picture from the net. That's why sometimes you need an internet connection for
Yeah,
Adobe
you
to
need
run it.
internet connection. I agree. It goes to a server sometimes and it computes there. But I think Lightroom is not using that because why I'm able to say a little confidently is because when my computer changed and I changed the graphics card, there was a tremendous change in the time taken. It reduced it very drastically. So obviously some computation is taking place locally itself. But I really don't know the details. Let me not talk
I
about
think
things.
I
Let
think
me
he's
not talk
talking
about
about
things which I don't
restoration.
understand.
Restoration of a picture, what is telling broken plate or this thing.
Yeah, that is the thing. But now I really, frankly, I do not know. But I really
Mr.
don't know.
Saurabh Bhattacharya has raised hand. Can we
Yeah.
invite him?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
please.
Mr. Saurabh Bhattacharya, you can ask your question.
Yes. Thank you, sir, for your excellent presentation. I
Thank
have
you, sir.
one basic query. Normally, high-end camera gives lesser noise compared to the low-end camera, like any low-end camera or any crop sensor camera. Is it due to their sensor quality or they
No,
are
no, the
using some
sensor
AI?
quality, not only sensor quality. You see, this is a very interesting question. You see, larger camera format sensors, I mean, like full frame, if you take, the area of light gathering is more.
Okay.
So it is very similar in the end. It will come to like a large format or a medium format camera compared to 35mm camera. The area is more so light, more light. In fact, you will be very surprised. You can do one very interesting experiment. If you you put your camera on tripod, full frame camera on tripod, don't change anything. Everything you keep the same. Take a picture of a blank wall in full frame mode and cropped mode. Okay. You will find that the noise is much more in the cropped mode than in the full frame mode. Same camera. So why is it happening? It's only because of the area of the sensor. If the more the area of the sensor, lesser will be the noise automatically because more light is getting gathered.
But sir, if we consider Nikon D750, the starting model full frame, and Nikon D6, both are
full frame. Yes.
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 But the noise level in D6 is very less compared to D750.
That's a little difficult to compare because the reason is I think between D750 and D6 some 8 years have elapsed, I think, right? Okay. So 8 years, definitely some advances in technology also must have taken place. But better, not only better sensor, it is also better software would have come into picture.
Okay.
And one more thing, sir. Costlier cameras may be using sensors of higher quality also.
Yes, okay.
See, I will tell you one very simple example. We are all using some sensors in even our best cameras. We have some very good sensors, etc. But if some NASA is launching some satellite with some sensor, it won't be like this. It will be 1,000 times better than this. It will be 1,000,000 times more expensive also.
Yes.
So that part of it comes in the way the quality of the design and how they do it also will come into picture.
Okay.
Because if you take, for example, ARRI sensors, they are 16, 17 stops dynamic range they have. So they are very, very costly, those sensors. So the cost of this, the quality of the design, etc. also will, it is something like a Maruti and a Mercedes, there is a difference between the two.
Yes, okay.
You can say both are cars and have 4 wheels, yes, that is correct technically. But beyond that, there are some differences.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Can I ask?
Yes, please. Your name, sir?
My name is Dr. Nishit. I'm from Ahmedabad.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you have been telling that you needed this much minimum configuration of a computer for good post processing, whether it is Lightroom or whatever the software you are using. So, can I know what should be the minimum configuration according to you? The computer configuration?
See, if you are, what is the camera you're having?
Nikon X8.
Z8.
Z8, sorry, Z8, not X. Z8.
Z8 is a 45 MP camera.
Yeah.
So I think you have at least some 64 GB RAM and some 1 TB SSD in it. Rani is there?
I'm there.
Rani, what's your
just mute
computer
myself.
configuration? You can tell.
No, see, the point is, the more the
RAM
you have, the better.
Faster.
That is the first thing.
Yes, sir.
So instead of getting, say, now lots of laptops, for example, come with 8 GB RAM.
Right.
16 GB is definitely better, and 24 GB is still better, and 32 would be still better. So the more the RAM, the better it is. That is the first thing you keep in mind.
Right.
Get more RAM. Then the processor speed. How many core processor? Now there is a cutout there too. Beyond a certain point, it doesn't increase the quality so much, but the cost will increase 3 times. So that is why if you are getting the computer assembled yourself, then you need to worry about this. When you are buying it from a known make, say Dell or XY or Z known make, then you don't have a choice except for buying different models with different RAMs.
So basically, we buy with the more RAM. Otherwise, the processing in
more
everything
RAM,
will be almost same.
more RAM and a larger hard drive also.
Yeah, of course.
SSD. Hard disk will be too
yes.
slow. SSD.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, I can tell you the configuration of my system, what I recently
What
changed.
the new one?
Yeah, new one is 32 GB RAM. And NVIDIA graphics processor with 8 GB of its own RAM. And then i7 processor 2.5 gigahertz, 14th generation. That's what I'm using right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
But see, if I have old one with a 16 GB RAM, if I put it like more RAM, like 64,
Yeah, it'll
Will it
improve.
increase?
It'll improve. It'll improve. It'll
Okay.
improve,
It'll
definitely.
improve. It will
It'll
improve, but it may not give you the same thing again because the processor may be
Processor
also
also is
very old.
different. Yeah, processor also different.
Right.
So you have
This
to
is
have a new. It is like a chain. Every link in the chain has to be strong. If the
Right.
chain is very strong and only one link is weak, then the chain totally is weak, no matter how thick the metal would be to do that. So processor has to change. The RAM has
RAM
to
has to change,
change.
disk has to change. Yeah.
Disk
Yeah.
has to change.
And
Practically
does it
every
make any
box will
difference
be.
if I use external SSD
No,
and
no,
the
you
internal
can't use an
SSD?
external
Yes,
SSD.
if
You
you
can't
use external
use.
SSD, your speed will come down.
Come down. Yeah. See,
Okay.
that is why they normally call it the name SSID. Solid state internal drive.
Okay.
SSID they call. And so that is, you can have out 1 TB or something like that. If your images can be on an external drive, that's not much of a problem. But the actual processing has to be done on the local SSID inside a SSD.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Cleared a lot of because every time you add, it is so much expense.
No, actually, what happens is it's a question of diminishing returns. See, I had one computer which I purchased 9 years ago. Around 4 years back, I upgraded it. I removed the hard disk, put in SSID, changed the 8 GB RAM into 16 GB RAM. It survived for another 3-4 years. But after that, ultimately, it is like take a car, you just can't swap an engine and say it will become better. Slowly, the gearbox will not work, the brakes will not work, the suspension will not, all these things will come one after another. So ultimately, you got to get a new car. You can't keep on upgrading it beyond a certain point. The diminishing returns. After a point, you put more money, but that much return you won't get.
Right.
Yeah.
Sir, we have Venkat S, who has raised his hand for quite some time.
This will be the last question. Sir, are you interested to take more questions?
I can take.
Okay.
Mr. Venkat S?
Yeah. Hello, sir. Good evening. Wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have a very fundamental question, way below what the whole thing, it should have been the first question, in fact. See, the class 101, the first class in photography, what they teach us is.
Your audio, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Okay. The first thing what they teach us in photography, the first class ever, is that take your best picture in the camera itself. So avoid post-processing. Don't keep it to there. Take your best shot in the camera. That is the most fundamental thing what is taught to every student of photography. Okay, we come from that background, all of us. Now, having said that, the whole thing here slightly I see a contradiction, of course, for a certain reason, okay, where the whole class is about noise and ISO. Well, when I take a picture, I would like to see the picture what I'm taking right in my camera rather than giving a low, keeping ISO lower, for example, and then later taking it to post processing. Well, in that case, what wasn't mentioned is we have to bank a little on our luck. Why? Because what if that picture wasn't of that? Anyway, we can't see the picture because we have taken in a low light with low ISO. So from that point of view, when we move to post-processing, something is messed up. I'm taking the worst case possibility. If something is messed up, then we lose the whole picture. So what I do, which I should correct from after looking at your presentation, what I do is I keep ISO to auto. For example, because I use a D6 and a very powerful camera. So since the ISO is auto, it itself jumps the ISO to whatever it wants to get the picture. I can see the picture in the camera itself in the frame. And I know that yes, it has come to my composition, most important, the quality of the picture. And then later I take it to for processing and clean it up. So what do you think about this thing? So don't we need to see the picture once, one shot taking in the camera with high ISO, just to see if all parameters are good, and then going by your procedure where we reduce the ISO and let it, and why you told that to retain, to not to blow up the image. I fully understand that. So to go by this procedure henceforth, take 5 pictures and then add it up, like what all you explained. So yeah, is my question clear? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't have any answer to that, because if you would like to follow a certain style or a philosophy, I mean, it's fine. There is nothing wrong. I am not telling anybody that this is the way you should do. I'm just telling this is what happens. But if you are not, if you do not want to follow this, I think that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no.
Can I
But
butt
sir,
in
this
over
is like
here?
what you have shown was a blind picture, you know. There is nothing on the,
Which
there is
one?
a totally black picture. So how do we know that, I understand the, so how do I know whether I have clicked a proper picture or not?
Well, why not?
Because you are telling about the handheld.
Sir,
In
I
preview,
can't
it will be-
answer that question, because when we are using film, when you to take a picture, we never know how it's going to come. You just take a picture, and then if you know what you're doing, I'm sure you know what you're doing, because I mean, there are some film shooters here, I'm sure.
yeah.
You wouldn't have known what is going to come there. You just assume that this is the correct thing. This 1, 2, 3 they have done, so it's it's going to be proper in the end. That's the only assurance I can think of. Because one thing very important is, in any photography, what you see is not what you want to show also, right? In fact, the whole pre-visualization
Yeah.
is the basis of photography. Where, if you take great photographers like Ansel Adam and all, they never believed what they saw. They only looked at what they're going to present to other people. That's why this so-called pre-visualization and all came into picture. But I think that's not a technical issue. It's more a philosophical issue. Different people want to follow. See, there are people who say, I will not touch post-processing. That's fine. I have no issue with it at all. Whoever
some
want to
people
do
don't
it,
compose, they don't crop.
that's up to them. They can do what
Yeah.
they wish to. Yeah, I agree. Sir,
Can
you
I
must
butt
have
in
shot
over here?
film. If you shoot film, what flexibility do you have? You can't do anything. I mean, not film, slide film, transparencies, for example, which most professionals used to shoot. There isn't much you can do once you shoot. That's the end of the story. That's all.
Maybe the reason why Mr. Ashok showed the dark thing was a matter of policy. I don't think he'll be shooting all his pictures so dark. I think for the
Sorry,
sake
sir?
of this, for the sake of this presentation, you
Uh,
must have shown the dark picture.
and not that way, sir. Sometimes when I feel that it is going too high, I do underexpose and come out. But averaging you can't use everywhere. That is for sure. Because I already told you very clearly that only under circumstances it works. Okay, this is just it is just one more tool. That's all. If you want to use it, you use it. If you are philosophically opposed to it, it's fine. That you need not use it also. There's nothing wrong. And
It's an example of what can be done.
yeah, that's all. Exactly. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I will request Dr. Sridhar to propose a vote of thanks.
Okay.
Good, Mr. Agarwal, you shouldn't. I have come to listen, not to talk.
No.
Mr. Ashok is very well known to me, although he may not know me because I've been going through his articles in smart photography for years.
Oh.
And in fact, I started with very low expectation because what is there to listen to ISO? But having heard what he has done, it's changed much more than most of what others could have said. It had removed the blinkers of so many rules that have been handed down generations. And he's shown his expertise in both science as an alumnus and as a professor at the IIT, as well as his skill in the art and science of photography. So it's been a very illuminating talk, and it is only right that the number of participants have spilled over the upper limit. And even more interesting, they have stayed there until the end of the presentation. So on behalf of Chhayankan and all of us, we wish to thank you for sharing
The pleasure was mine. It is an honor for me also.
your
So, yeah.
knowledge and experience with all of us.
Still 53 people are there, sir.
Oh, okay.
From all over the world.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
all,
Thank
sir.
you for giving me the
Thank you,
opportunity.
Ashok, sir.
On
Yeah,
behalf of
thank you.
the Chhayankan, we thank all participants. This webinar was success because of their active participation and taking interest into the program. And we look forward to be having more webinars in time to come.
Sure,
Surely
sir. Sure.
come here, and we look forward to be having more
Sure,
in
sir.
the.
Thank you very
Please
much.
do share your feedback in the group,
Chat
because
box.
that helps us improving the next webinar and also encourages the expert who puts in so much pain in preparing and sharing his knowledge to all of us. So please do take out some time and write in your words in the group. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ashok. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome, Ronnie.
Wonderful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming. Yeah,
Thank you,
Wonderful,
Ashok,
sir.
sir.
Wonderful.
Wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Thank you,
Good
sir.
Good
night.
night, sir. I'm leaving.
Thank
So we'll
Thank you for eye-opening.
Thanks, sir.
Presentation.
Agarwalji,
Thank you very much,
Vijay.
sir.
No, it was a great show, sir. So many
It's my
myths
pleasure.
busted.
My thing. I didn't expect so many people to remain. So that was a
Actually,
very pleasant time.
this talk was on philosophy of ISO.
Yes, Mr. Satish.
Because most of the time, whatever we know, like in most of the Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita pravachanas, the philosophy part is takes over whatever we know. So like that in photography also, this whatever we had known earlier, the philosophy of Mr. Ashok has changed our really thinking about ISO on photography. Thanks a lot, sir. Fantastic show.
Sir, and your presence itself was great for us.
Lends a lot of grace to us.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank
you,
you.
everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Now I close the meeting.